So, welcome to
Hello.
the fifth session of the Economics Refresher course.
Yeah,
And
sorry, I thought it was
yes,
on
yes,
that
yes,
other
it was on
link.
a different link. We were both on different links, so I just joined in now. So, we'll start with the concept of production and production function for today. And
Okay.
yesterday we finished with the concepts of price ceiling and price floor. So, we'll just
Let's float.
yeah. So price floor is a concept in which price will not fall
Below,
below a
you
certain
can't
level.
sell the product on at a lower price because of the
Yeah.
government standards. And price
Yes.
ceiling is the maximum limit by which producers tend to sell the product. But
Yeah.
price floor cannot be exceeded, but the price ceiling can be exceeded.
What are examples of price ceilings? Can they be minimum wages?
Or not or any something very important, some very important necessity
Yes.
like
That's
medicine or
and the examples of price floor can be
rice flow water.
water. Some of the main goods which the price doesn't fall with an increase in quantity as well, or the increase in supply as well.
Hmm.
So it can be water.
Huh.
So we'll
Yeah.
start with the production and production function, which is the next concept in concept of production and production function. So there are short run and long run production functions, average and marginal physical products, and there's the law of variable proportions as well. So the first
Hmm.
concept is the definition of production function. So the production function of a firm depicts a relationship between the inputs used in the production process and the final output produced. A production function is represented as Qx is equal to function of L and K, where L represents units of labor used and K represents units of capital used. OX represents unit of output produced. So to produce any product, for example, say cotton, to
Hmm.
produce cotton in a cotton clothes in a factory, so they do need land, labor, and capital, right?
Yeah.
For the final product. So this can be Qx can be the unit of cotton produced. F is a function of labor and the capital used to produce. So L and K
F
are the
is function.
inputs. Yeah, it can be
Oh.
the function of the inputs, which is equal to the output produced. So these are the differences between the short run production function and long run production function.
Hmm. Factors of production under short-run production function, at least one of these factors of production remains fixed. Factors of production as in labor and capital. Okay.
Yes,
Hmm.
factors of production are labor and capital in both short run and long run production factors. So the difference is in short run production function, one of the factors of production remains fixed, whereas in long run production function, all factors of production become variables.
Okay.
Variables means they are not fixed. In short run production function, either labor or capital can be fixed.
Hmm.
Usually, which is a fixed factor in production function?
Fixed factor in production function is usually labor, right? I mean, in
Yeah,
this it is given capital, but usually the your labor doesn't change that much.
yes. And can land be a fixed factor of production?
Yeah, yeah. That is if the land is your own, then yes.
Yes, it can be a fixed factor of production. And the next concept is the law of variable proportions.
It states when the question is
So the law of variable proportion is regarded as an important theory in economics. It's referred to as the law which states that when the quantity of one factor of production is increased, keeping all other factors constant, it will result in the decline of marginal productivity of factor.
marginal product or productivity?
That
Because
marginal product of that factor.
what is the meaning of marginal product?
Marginal product is the total product is the function of marginal product. Marginal product is the decline in the labor or the variable factors. So marginal product is the variable factors which declines when the one factor of production is increased.
Okay.
So we'll depict this graphically also. We'll get to know the total product and the marginal product using 3 stages of law of variable proportions. So, law of variable proportion is also known as the law of proportionality. When the variable factor becomes more, it can lead to negative value of the margin product. The law of variable proportion can be understood in the following way. When one variable factor is increased while keeping all other factors constant, the total product will increase initially at an increasing rate. Next, it will be increasing at a diminishing rate, and eventually there will be a decline in the rate of
Decline
production.
in the rate of production.
So there are
Yeah.
assumptions of law of variable proportion as well. Before we depict it graphically, we will just study the assumptions of law of variable proportion.
So this
So
graph is like this, right? Upwards and then
yeah,
plateaus and then yeah.
so this is the 3 stages of the law of variable proportion. So total productivity increases in the first stage and reaches the maximum level in the second stage at R. And at the third stage, it decreases with an increase in factor of production. And whereas we have another curve which is starting at the same point of the total product production, which is known as the marginal product of production. So with an increase in total product, there's an increase in margin product in the first stage. Whereas in the second stage, when there's an increase in the total product, there's a decrease in the marginal product. And in the third stage, when the total product diminishes, there's a negative slope of the marginal product.
Yeah. I got 1 second. I think
Yeah.
I've made a graph on this in my textbook, in my notebook as well.
Yes, we can refer to the materials.
Yeah. Tamyana, is this the same as law of returns to a factor and returns to a scale?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
So are we clear on this 3 stages of law of variable proportion?
Yes.
So we can depict this graphically, and on the x-axis they have plotted the units of labor.
Yeah.
And in the y-axis there's the total product of production divided by the marginal product of production. And graphically they have depicted both the marginal product production curve and the total product of production with the 3 stages. And we just go through the first stage. The first stage, the total product increases at an increasing rate. This happens because the efficiency of fixed factors increases with the addition of variable inputs to the product. So there's a increase in the fixed factors, such as what can we say is a fixed factor here? Labor.
Okay, fixed factors are labor, land, capital.
Yeah. And the second stage is the diminishing returns. In this stage, the total product increases at a diminishing rate until it reaches the maximum point. The marginal and average product are positive but diminishing gradually. And whereas in the third product, there's a negative returns, the total product declines and the marginal product becomes negative.
Can you scroll down?
Yeah. Are we clear now?
Tamina, can you see this graph I've shown you in my book? This one?
Yeah, yes.
Is it the same one?
Are there the three stages mentioned in the
Yes.
returns to factor?
Yeah.
Yes, this is the same graph, what we're studying right now.
Okay.
So after studying these graphs, what can we define marginal product as? Can it be defined as the change in output as a result of one additional unit of input being added to production?
Can you repeat that? Marginal product is the change in output.
Output because of the increase or a result of one additional unit of input being added to production.
Marginal, second one.
Yeah. So as we can view on the graph, marginal product increases with an increase in total product. And when it diminishes, there's a decrease in the margin product or diminishing returns. And third stage, with the negative returns of total product or which declines steeply, there's a decline or a negatively sloped marginal product. So what we can define marginal product is, it is the output which change. Marginal product is the output which changes with the addition of a input factor.
Of an extra factor of production, right?
Yeah,
An
factor of
additional.
input.
What's the difference in factor of input and production?
Input, here we can call in the example of cotton as we mentioned. So the input factors of production are labor, capital, land, and in the inputs there are fixed and variable factors.
Okay.
So what can we call labor is as input of production, and marginal product increases or decreases with an additional unit of an input being added to production. So as labor is added here, there's a decrease in margin product with a decrease in total product as well. So we can just study the assumptions. The constant rate of technology is the first assumption. It is assumed that the state of technology will be constant, and with improvements in the technology, the production will improve. Variable factor proportions. This assumes that factors of productions are variable. The law is not valid if factors of production are fixed. And there are another 2 points, homogeneous factor units. This assumes that all the units produced are identical in quantity, quality, and price. In other words, the units are homogeneous in nature. Are the assumptions a bit complicated?
No, these are pretty easy.
Okay.
I feel.
In the short run, this assumes that this law is applicable for those systems that are operating for a short term, where it is not possible to alter all factor inputs. So one is they're assuming that because technology will
The
improve.
technology, state of technology remains constant.
Yeah.
Variable factor proportions and short run.
Yeah, and the short run. So we just need to remember the 4 main points.
Homogeneous units.
Yeah. What can we call as homogeneous factor units?
Means that units produced are identical in quality, quantity, and price. In other words, the units are mm, like dal and something else, like to their this
Yeah,
assume that the units
those
produced
are
are
examples of
identical.
homogeneous factors. So
Huh.
when we are depicting it graphically, so we are assuming all these factors are constant. Technology is constant, homogeneous factors are constant, and
Hmm.
only variable factors are variable. And this law is not valid if factors production are fixed. And in the short run, it is not possible to alter all factor inputs. Whereas in the long run, it is possible to alter all the factor inputs. Okay. So are we clear on the production function?
Yeah.
So we can head to the next concept.
Hmm.
We just need to remember the diagram in this production and short-run production function with the three
Okay.
stages of law of variable proportions.
Hmm.
So we'll just head to the next concept. So is the next concept cost and revenue
In my book.
in the yes in the microeconomic theory. It is the sixth concept in the microeconomic theory on the
Cost and
Byju's
revenue
syllabus.
analysis.
Yeah.
Cost and revenue analysis.
And we have skipped the elasticity of demand and the supply. So do we need
Yeah,
to go?
because I'm
Okay,
confident with that.
sure. We so in the supply there's likewise in the demand there's law of supply, there's derivation of supply
Yeah,
curve
and then
from
there's unitary elastic, perfectly
yes,
inelastic.
yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm
elasticity of demand is just the responsiveness of demand
yeah,
when the price changes. Is it
yeah.
so?
Yes.
Okay, and there are we have to use some slope as well in the elasticity of demand, slope
Isn't
of
that the demand
P.
curve?
We have to use it in a percentage method of elasticity of demand.
Percentage method and geometric method, right?
Yeah, yes.
Huh.
So we will
Can
not
I? Yeah,
study those methods in detail. We
yeah.
will go to the next concept called cost and revenue then. So what
Hmm.
can be called as cost? Cost can be defined as the investment in the factors of
Yeah.
production.
Cost refers to the total amount of money put in to produce a product
Okay.
and make it reach the supplier or
To
consumer.
produce a product, yeah, to the consumer.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. So revenue is just the income which is earned on the product, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what can be the formula of profit? Can it be
Profit
total?
is revenue minus cost.
Yeah, so it can be total revenue minus total cost. And what can be the formula of revenue? Can it be price into
Revenue
quantity?
can yeah, correct. Price into quantity. Hmm.
And there are other formulas for marginal revenue as well. Can it be called marginal revenue? Can be called the function of total revenue?
Marginal revenue. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Because marginal product is function of total product.
Yeah.
Marginal revenue is function of total revenue.
So we might have to use calculus in solving
हाँ
revenue concepts as well. Okay.
yeah.
And there's a next concept which is called the opportunity cost as well.
Okay.
So have we studied the concept of opportunity cost earlier?
No.
Okay. Opportunity cost is just the uh, choices that we make in choosing a product. For example, the 40 minutes which we are devoting to this economics refresher course can also be used productively for another. It can be used productivity for another subject as well. Is it right?
Yeah.
So that is known as the opportunity cost. There'll be a proper definition for it. We will. I'll just go through in the ManQ book, which I'll be sharing later.
Okay.
And in the concept of cost, we'll just go through and revenue. There are short run and long run costs as well. Short run costs and long run costs. Can
That
we
is
give
there in
any? Yeah.
long run costs, right?
Yeah. What are the examples of short run costs?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Tamil, can you give me some examples of short run costs and long run costs?
We'll need to think about it.
Mm, okay, 1 second. I'll just refer to the definition one more time and I'll
Sure, sure.
try. Can long run costs also be like machinery, land, and all that?
Yes, that's right. Short run costs can be the wages paid
Can
to the labor
okay,
or the cost
wages,
price of
salary.
raw materials.
Hmm. Okay.
Whereas long run costs are the machinery, the land.
Hmm.
Okay. Whereas long run costs are machinery and land.
So in this, again,
Yeah.
short run costs are also the same as variable costs,
Yes,
and long run costs are fixed costs.
it can be. Yes. So we will just go through the PowerPoint presentation on cost and revenue.
Hmm.
We can just define fixed cost as the cost that is not registered, a change with an increase or decrease in the quantity of goods produced by a firm. Fixed costs are those costs that companies should bear irrespective of the levels of production. So fixed costs are less controllable in nature than the variable costs. They are not dependent on the production factors such as
Such as
volume. And
with
the
respect
different
to
examples of fixed costs can be rent, salaries, and property tax.
again, salaries and wages are different in this, like accounts. It's different in this also.
Yes, yes. Property tax can be the property tax which is being paid to the municipality
No,
for
no,
the
property
property
tax
owner.
I got it. That I
And
understood.
rent is for the rented premises. It's paid on a monthly basis. And salaries is for the labor.
But we just discussed that salaries and wages can be variable cost, right? short run costs?
They are short run costs. We'll just study the difference later as well. Go to the
Okay.
next concept. So variable cost is referred to as the type of cost that will show variations as per the changes in the levels of production. Depending on the volume of the production in a company, the variable cost increases or decreases. The examples of variable costs are the cost of raw materials that are used for production, sales commissions, labor cost, and more. So, as per the definitions of fixed cost
As
and variable cost, yeah, a short-run
well,
cost and for a long-run term, we will leave it for later. We will not add them in these. So, in fixed cost, there'll be the examples can be the salaries paid, whereas in the variable cost, it is the cost of raw
commission.
materials used. Yeah. So
Got it.
they don't have a fixed rate, so they keep changing as per the demands and supply.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so the difference of fixed cost is and variable cost. Fixed cost refers to the cost that does not register a change with an increase or decrease in the number of goods produced by a firm.
Hmm.
So
What
if
is
a
type of cost that will show variations as per the changes in the levels of production?
yeah, so fixed cost can be rent. Rent will never change with the increase in production, or salaries will not change with an increase in production. The property tax paid to the municipality will not change with an increase in production. Whereas variable costs such as labor and raw materials will definitely change. As we increase the production, there'll be a more cost involved in the cost of raw materials. So if a firm is producing 50 units of cotton clothes and they want to increase it to 100, definitely the increase there'll be an increase in the cost of raw materials used.
Hmm.
And fixed costs are time dependent and changes after a certain period of time. Variable costs are incurred irrespective of units produced. Sorry, variable costs are volume dependent and changes based on the volume produced. Fixed
Yeah.
costs are incurred irrespective of units produced. Variable costs are incurred as and when units are produced.
No,
Variable
how does
costs,
fixed
yeah.
cost decrease with an increase in number of units produced?
Uh, yeah. Does it does it really decrease with an increase in the number of units produced in reality?
No, in reality, no, I don't think so because no matter how much I'm increase in number of unit, how much I'm producing, the
Yeah.
my rent will remain the same, no, or it might even increase, but it won't decrease.
Yeah, it'll increase. But here
Hmm.
they've named it as decrease. We will clarify on that later.
Yeah.
So variable cost remains the same irrespective of the number of units produced.
Hmm.
So yeah, and higher production results in reduced costs and increased profits in fixed costs, whereas there's no impact on profit with the level of production in variable costs.
Hmm.
Probably fixed costs remain the same with an increase in the number of units produced. This point can be changed. The fourth point in the differences can be changed. Whereas in the variable cost, uh, the fourth point also can be changed. So you are right that fixed costs remain same with an increase in the number of units produced. When we take the example of a firm. So now we get to the short run costs. Short run costs, there are both fixed and variable costs.
Okay.
And
How?
in long run costs, there are no fixed costs, there are only
What
variable
are the
costs.
fixed short run costs?
Um, can it be
No, no.
rent?
Rent. Rent is short run or rent is also long term, right? Or
Can it be the
and
long run fixed cost?
huh?
Can rent be the long run fixed cost or a variable cost?
It can be variable as well, right? Because the
Uh,
rent can also increase.
rent can increase, but it will not increase with an increase in production.
Okay.
Rent can only increase with the period of time.
Okay.
And there are agreements formed before rents increase. So they
What?
increase, there are agreements formed
Okay.
between the premises owner and the tenant.
Okay.
So rent can be a fixed long run cost,
Yeah.
and variable cost. What can be the examples of short run variable costs?
Like electricity bill
Yeah,
or
the payment
mm,
of wages.
yeah,
Wages are
wages. Yeah.
different from
Yeah,
salaries.
salary. Yeah, I got it. Wages are basically based on the on your output, right?
Yeah, on the output and on the labor productivity
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And the cost price of raw materials can also be called as short run cost. Can these
Yeah.
be short run variable costs then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. And this is the diagram of the short run cost, which is derived from. So there's a cost on the y-axis and the output on the x-axis. So they've derived the short-run marginal cost, average variable cost, and the short-run average cost as well. So what can be the definition of or the formula of average cost? Can it be average
Average
cost
cost
equals to
is
total cost
to-
divided by 2?
total cost by marginal cost.
Is it so?
No, no, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. One second.
Total average cost would be the total cost divided by the quantity, right?
Yeah. Shucks. Correct.
So average cost can be called as the total cost,
Divided by the quantity
yeah,
of goods.
divided by the quantity of units produced. Which means this as average cost. So AC is equal to EC by Q. So if we remember the definitions clearly in cost and revenue, we can
Yeah, then
solve
the
the
formula
numerical.
is
Yeah.
easy. Ah.
Okay. In the short run, at least one aspect of production is fixed while the other stays variable. Hence, in the short run, the degree of end results can be raised only by increasing the variable aspects such as raw materials and labor, while other factors such as plant size and capital remain constant. So we just need to remember the definitions. They might be one markers on costs as well, asking the formulas of average cost or the definitions of short-run cost as well. So
Yeah.
short-run cost comprises both the fixed cost that does not differ with the change in degree of end results and the variable cost.
I mean, can you just send me these definitions because they're not there in my notebook?
Sure, sure. The PPTs will be shared.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And the marginal cost, the marginal cost, the formula is change in cost divided by the change in quantity. It is calculated by taking the total cost of producing the additional goods in account and dividing that by the change in the total quantity of the goods produced.
Hmm.
So marginal cost can be equal to TC divided by Q.
Marginal cost is what?
Is the change in
Mar
cost. So
change
if
in cost.
yeah,
One.
so is there calculus involved in marginal cost?
By any
while
business
solving
when
them?
yeah, when there is a need for producing additional units. Tamyana, I did not understand the definition of marginal cost. Can you just repeat it?
Yeah. Marginal
Explain.
costs are the costs incurred by any business when there's a need for producing additional units of any goods or services. So marginal cost
Hmm.
includes variable costs like material and labor.
Huh.
So when there's additional units produced, there's a change in the material and labor. So these are known as the marginal costs. So when we solve them numerically, we are going to understand them in detail. We will definitely solve the problem of solving the total cost, marginal cost, short run average cost, variable cost.
No, I'm okay. That is fine for me. But
Okay.
marginal cost is not like marginal utility, no? Because marginal utility is the additional utility. Marginal cost is also the additional cost, or just
It is the calculation of the total cost of producing the additional units and dividing by the change in the total quantities. So there's a derivative used here. So it is different from marginal utility. So the change in the total cost divided by the change in the quantity produced is known as the marginal cost. It's a simple definition of a marginal cost.
yeah.
So can we just make a note of it?
Yes.
Marginal cost is it? Can it
Change in
be a?
cost by change
How
in
do we
quantity.
define it in formula type?
Change in cost by change in quantity.
Yeah. Do we have a separate formula for that? Like a D of total cost?
Delta
Yeah.
delta delta C by delta Q.
Okay. Well, delta. So marginal cost is there'll be no difference in cost with an increase or decrease in production. And
Hmm.
we'll go to the next concept called revenue. Revenue is also mentioned or referred to as the turnover or sales.
Yeah.
So we're done with costs as the definition. We will solve the problems later. We just went to the next concept of revenue. So revenue can be defined as the income or the fees collected from the turnover or sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
Revenue is basically total amount, total money generated through operations, right?
Yes, revenue is the total money generated from operations or the total income or the total sales generated from operations. In other words, the enterprise, so we'll just keep it simple and we'll just go through the first definition and the second. So revenue is also mentioned and it's referred to as turnover sales. A few companies get revenue from royalties, other fees or interest. So all these can be even royalties, fees or interest can also be classified as revenue.
Yeah.
And the types of revenue are total revenue, which is the total receipts a vendor can procure from selling commodities or services to the consumers. So TR is equal to P into Q.
P
TR
into
is
Q
equal to total revenue is equal to price into quantity.
quantity.
So we are coming to the end of the session today.
Yeah.
So there's just 30 seconds left. So we'll just go through the average revenue